Aunque tú me has echado en el abandono, aunque ya han muerto todas mis ilusiones, en vez de maldecirte con gusto en tono, en mis sueños te colmo, en mis sueños te colmo de bendiciones. Sufro la inmensa pena.
I only learn more about him by talking to other people who have known him, because he's just that humble. Like, this is a man who literally had no Twitter, Instagram, or even email, sometimes even telephone, and he spread yoga across the island physically, where he would get on a bus with a box of mats that have been donated, books that he would go to the National Library and literally sit there, because there's no photocopier, so he's sitting there writing down what's in the books so that he can create newsletters and go to a province, and then he would have those teachers come to his home and teach and do teacher training for 2 years. And when they graduate, they go back to their province, and he goes and does the whole bus trip again, sending them more books and more mats, and he's literally spreading, yoga across the island without the need to sell yoga.
Since the early 80s, Eduardo Pimentel has taught over 12,000 yoga students and established a thriving meditation community out of his small house in Havana, Cuba. He's practiced in India, the US, and Canada, and is a regular feature on Cuban state television. This man is the godfather of the Cuban yoga community.
When I was 26, 27, I discovered a book of yoga. When I saw the book of yoga, I said, this is perfect for me, because it's the combination of sport, training for my body, also my mind.
Eduardo became fascinated with yoga after reading a book by Swami Sivananda in the early 1970s. However, there were no local yoga teachers, and travel abroad was simply not an option. So he practiced by himself, using books as his guide, and began exchanging letters with B.K.S. Iyengar, the founder of the Iyengar School of Yoga.
From 1972 to 1982, I am waiting a master. I am waiting a guru in my life. He never appeared in Cuba, never appeared. I don't want to make any speculation, but I saw through some review that they are very expensive gurus.
After 25 years of waiting, Eduardo was finally able to make his first trip to India to meet his Guruji, B.K.S. Iyengar. By this point, they'd been exchanging letters for 15 years.
1997, I went to India. I met Guruji and I stayed with him, but the schedule of him was full because I could not make any reservation. In Cuba, there are not internet, then I don't have any connection with him, except letters from 1982, letter from him. This is a very old airgrams, is only one paper. You fold and send. Then probably 4 months from Cuba to India, and I waiting 4 months or more from India to Cuba. And all this letter I have with me. And when I met him, then the secretary said, Eduardo, but you don't have any appointment. Yeah, well, it's true. I have all these letters. Show my letter to him. And then immediately Guruji said, okay, come, and we have an interview. Say, all my class is full now, but please come again. And I went again the second time. I don't have so money to spend a lot of money in Pune, but I stayed 3 days. I visit him. He write one of his book to me. And I said, you are my Guruji. I know that I'm not your certified student, but anyway, you are my Guru, that is your problem.
When the Soviet Union collapsed in the early 90s, essential support for Cuba's healthcare system disappeared almost overnight. The Cuban government responded by turning to alternative and natural medicine. Yoga suddenly became an officially recognized component of Cuba's national healthcare system.
Department of the Ministry of Health Care need to give workshop in different provinces because there are no medicine. And then they collect few persons, one acupuncturist, one herbalist, one Tai Chi teacher, and one yoga teacher with me. And they say, okay, we have a program in Santiago de Cuba, very far. And they move with me to Santiago de Cuba or to Manzanillo or different provinces. And they collect all the doctors or some doctors who are interested in national and traditional medicine and some sport training. We use alternative medicine, and that is the beginning to spread yoga in that way officially. And we have now only in 2-3 provinces, we call province in Cuba. But this is very laughing for me because you call province to your province. When I saw your province, yeah, huge province, and we have 14 provinces, and we are very proud of our 14 provinces. But in fact, there are provinces. We are in 10 of 11 provinces. We have yoga, and in some provinces we have 2 places at the same time.
The way yoga is practiced in Cuba differs significantly when compared to a typical Western yoga studio. In Cuba, yoga is perceived as an integral part of everyday life, not as a drop-in fitness class. Cuban yoga feels more communal and less transactional than in the West.
If someone comes into the class a little bit late, we all stop, say hello, give each other kisses, find out how your family is, and then resume the practice. So there isn't this idea, there's more of a sense that the practice is rooted in your daily life and in your community and in interactions with each other, which I found to be profoundly different than how yoga is practiced currently in Toronto at this moment in time, which is an isolated event where you don't really know people. Even though you could be practicing yoga together in a classroom at the same studio for 5 years, you might never say anything to the people around you or to your teacher.
It's not so much that they do yoga, it's that they practice yoga. It's part of their everyday life, right? So here when you meet someone, oh yeah, do you do yoga? You know, that's the question we say, whereas over there it says, you know, do you practice yoga? Because it's something they actually implicate into their daily life. I mean, here, you know, of course, yoga is the tool that allows yogis, you know, to deal with stress, but over there they really explained to me how practicing yoga has given them the tools to deal with all things that happen in their culture, which might not happen in our culture.
So there isn't this feeling like you're going to the gym to work out. You're actually learning things about the practice that matter. The other components of the practice, like pranayama, meditation, how to feed yourself, how to care for yourself, how to care for the community.
So there's no need to sell yoga. There's no need to wear certain clothes at a yoga class. There's, you know, nobody wears mala bracelets on their wrist unless they know what it really means. Like there's nothing related to yoga because there's no need to push it. For his students, where he would get beans And he sits there at night with a needle, like making holes in these beans and then sewing 108 beans just so that he can gift these to his students. But no, he would never sell a mala necklace to any of his students because there's just no need for that. The real essence of having his yoga community is to share all of his knowledge that he learned so that they can learn.
Que va a haber un curso para mujeres que si deseaban ser instructoras de yoga, pues nada, estaba abierto a formar a las mismas. De hecho, fue el primer curso de formación de mujeres para impartir yoga acá en Cuba. Fue ameno, fueron 2-3 años compartiendo con él y realmente fue fantástico. Por primera vez me sentí enseñando los sábados como parte del curso de instructores de yoga que estamos pasando, que nos van enseñando, y que ha sido una experiencia muy bonita porque ella no viene solo de la relación que Eduardo puede establecer conmigo como profesor, sino la relación que establecemos ya de conjunto con otras personas que están aprendiendo a conocerse, aprendiendo a practicar yoga, aprendiendo a relacionarse con su cuerpo.
When it comes to teacher training, Eduardo's approach is very different than a typical Western YTT program. In terms of expectations, well, the bar's pretty high. Students are expected to study for several years before they're certified to teach. Compare this to the 200-hour YTT programs offered in the West.
And also that he has students for 10, 15, 20 years, and that to teach, you have to practice with him and then apprenticeship with him for a very long time before you can teach, like 3 years, 5 years. Whereas here we have all these quick dry yoga things where you can go for a weekend and call yourself a teacher, and then we're wondering why there's so many injuries.
In 1982, I asked myself, what happened? A lot of people come to my house and ask about yoga. And they say, okay, I am still a student. I only have books. I know if I teach, my ego will go big. It was a very difficult decision for me because a lot of people came. I say, okay, how I teach? Then I begin to teach in my house. Friends came. I never invite anybody to come to my house to learn yoga. Then 1 month's teacher training is good. But this is only the beginning, I suppose. For me, you know, I wait 20 years to receive some better qualification. Then in all this long process, I could not say I am a yoga teacher. Somebody said, my teacher, but I always said, no, we are friends. Because it's very dangerous to say, I am a yoga teacher. Very, very dangerous. For both sides. I have a lot confusion in my life. At the same time I am teaching also my confusing teaching. I need to put clear all this at the same time. I hope that all the teachers in all around the world grow more in a very deep sense. And also I recommend it not only to know about Hindu philosophy, also to include it Buddhist knowledge in their own practice. I recommend it to all my teachers to spend at least in your life one Vipassana retreat. To be more awareness to their own life.
Perhaps the most striking aspect of Eduardo's perspective on yoga is the almost complete absence of commercial consideration. In the West, yoga is a big money industry. By contrast, the Cuban yoga community seems to draw its strength from resourcefulness, sharing, commitment, and joy. The atmosphere is friendly and loose, but the practice is strong and diligent. Like Cuba itself, Eduardo has managed to thrive despite the lack of resources or access to the tools that we take for granted. There's no social media, no glossy magazines, and no fancy props. Just a commitment to the practice and a strong desire to share. When asked what's needed to advance the Cuban yoga community, Eduardo's answer was as simple and pragmatic as his practice.
Mats. Mat. Rubber mats. Sticky mat. Because there are a lot of group practice yoga with nothing.